So Trump is deploying National Guard to D.C. and also placing the police under federal control.
Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam.
Yeah, by the way, D.C. and many other American cities, of course, are experiencing the lowest level of crime. D.C. specifically, I think in like 3 decades, lowest level of crime. So like Donald Trump saying that this is like crime is out of control is just a relitigation of shit that is not happening. Once again, invent a problem that doesn't actually exist or a trend that is going in the positive direction, act as though it's actually in the negative direction, lie about it. No one is going to check you anyway. And then what do? You have to fix this problem that you keep claiming is going on. This is virtually everything that this administration has done. Literally, every time this administration identifies an issue that's taking place, it is basically a direct reversal of the reality. Okay, reality on the ground, immigrants are not actually contributing to crime in meaningful ways. As a matter of fact, undocumented migrants are responsible for much lower rates of crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. Donald Trump keeps claiming consistently they're doing tremendous amounts of crime. No one actually checks them. And then when he comes into power, he's like, well, we got to do some sort of immigration enforcement. Lo and behold, it turns out we're not actually apprehending these drug dealer beheaders. We're just apprehending regular ass people that have been working at the goddamn fields to make a fucking penny to give back to their families. That's why they're doing these Home Depot raids, as a matter of fact. Is that where the MS-13 decapitators are at? That's what they're waiting at? They're waiting at the Home Depots? Is that what's going on? No, of course not. It's fucking stupid because that's not a real problem. Donald Trump invented the problem. Well, Donald Trump didn't single-handedly invent the problem, but he just ran on this being a real issue. And of course, because it's not a real problem at all, you have to fucking turn around and invent a solution, a real violent solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Same goes for crime in DC. Is there crime in DC? Certainly. There's also obviously a housing crisis in DC as there is everywhere else. So there's homelessness there too. And he wants to just like do violent seizures and violent apprehensions in DC. And in an effort to make sure that this kind of attitude sticks, you got to just like point to one instance of crime to say this is out of control. We got to fucking stop it. Yeah. Of course, violent crime is at a 30-year low in DC, but don't let real information get in the way of creating a comfortable narrative, right? A violent, reactionary, right-wing narrative. Of course, too many newsrooms are just parroting the Trump admin's claims about crime and reporting on what's happening in DC as the National Guard is deployed into a crime crackdown. Violent crime in DC is 30-year low. Total violent crime for 2024 in the District of Columbia is down 35% from 2023 and is at its lowest as it's been in over 30 years, according to data collected by the Metropolitan Police Department and announced by the United States Attorney Matthew M. Graves. A breakdown of data is available here. In addition to overall violent crime reduction, homicides are down 32%, robberies are down 39%, armed carjackings are down 53%, assaults with a dangerous weapon are down 27% when compared to 2023 levels, with the district reporting the fewest assaults with dangerous weapons and burglaries in over 30 years. That's where we're at. Listen, do not let actual information, the truth, empirical evidence, and all the other gay woke shit like that get in the way of crafting a fucking right-wing narrative that justifies the military coming in and I guess like doing violent seizures and violent crime tackling. Okay, fake stats are woke, they're gay, it's made up. That's basically what it is. Okay,
and squalor. And worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section...
What changed reduced crime so substantially? Crime rates increased dramatically due to COVID instability, and then it's normalizing once again. That's what's the major factor here. That's it. That's all it is. Crime has been on a consistent downtrend for decades at this point. What these guys mean when they talk about crime, what they mean is visible poverty, okay, homelessness, and storefronts closing down, shit like that, which is a direct product of bad policy. And the only way to tackle that issue is by doing good policy that actually improves the material circumstances of working class Americans. But obviously they won't do that because that's fucking extra woke and extra gay, extra socialist, right? So they have to do like violent apprehension, which is fascist. It's on the exact opposite front. Not to get all blue and on, but this feels like a practice run for eventually declaring martial law nationwide. Oh, for sure. Abso-freaking-lutely. It's very obvious that this man wants to federalize the National Guard in every state he possibly can, specifically blue states. Red states will obviously implement the National Guard at the Trump's behest regardless. And he wants to violently and forcibly go through this process and take control over every single fucking country. It's interesting because, like, there is no sophisticated false flag operation or a psyop that they're implementing. They're basically just saying there's no need for it anymore. You can just have Donald Trump say there's a lot of crime happening in this area, so we have to literally use the military to stop it. And people will go, okay, I guess we do. There's no like, CIA comes in and like it does some kind of like intervention or whatever. The president just says it. There's no pushback from the media ecosystem. So obviously, whatever he says goes. And before you know it, you're like, I guess we just have military on the streets. Great.
740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. Deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. You want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington...
D.C. Violent crime in D.C. 2024 to 2025 year-to-date comparison. They just slam it right next to him saying this. Homicide down 12%. Abuse down 49%. Assault with a dangerous weapon down 20%. Robbery down 28%. That's the woke DC Met Police. DC Met Police is lying because they're woke. Believe me, folks, they're lying. They're lying to the American public about how the crime is down. It's up. It's up. Why do I know it's up? Because I said so. We are going to fire the statistics guy at DC Metropolitan Police, and we're going to put whatever numbers we say is happening. That's right. These are not accurate numbers. These are inaccurate fake news numbers. We're going to fire the person who came up with the numbers and make sure that it is reflective of the reality.
Today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia.
Are you saying his bar charts are fake? First of all, he doesn't have a bar chart. He's just making shit up, okay? He's just making shit up. Why is he making this shit up? Because he wants to utilize the National Guard as a police force that is beholden to him and him only. And it's a testing ground. DC is a testing ground because it's like not a real state. It's a District of Columbia, and it doesn't have like the same tools at its disposal. So Donald Trump is basically using the DC, the big balls beat up, as an inflection point to try to test some kind of like a federal law enforcement, because there's already a tremendous amount of federal law enforcement agents in DC to begin with. Yeah. There's no chart yet. Okay. I'm sure eventually there will be a chart that they will point to that will, create a neat little narrative, right? This is the chart. Washington, D.C. will be liberated today. Crime, savagery, filth, and scum will disappear. I will make our capital great again. Holy fuck, he is so insane. The days of ruthlessly killing or hurting innocent people are over. I quickly fixed the border. 0 illegals in the last 3 months. D.C. is next.
Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Yeah, just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes through our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had 0. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said 0 for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some...
Don't get me wrong, like America's rooted in racism, but isn't this like incompetent fascism? If people are mad at ICE, I feel like target black people radicalize most Americans more. No, this is incompetent fascism. I mean, American fascism also doesn't have any sort of like significant institutional hurdles. American fascism does not have any sort of like serious left-wing pushback. So in the absence of like serious left-wing pushback, you can be incompetent and fascist in this way in broad daylight. and there is seemingly no investment or interest from the left flank, the Democratic Party, which is not a real left party anyway. It's a center-right party in and of itself. But there is no institutional opposition within the duopoly, so they could just be as fucking stupid as possible with very little pushback. They already have captured the attention and the investment of some of the power brokers that control flows of information. On the one hand, you have the Fourth Estate, mainstream news and mainstream press owned by billionaires. Donald Trump goes to them and says, hey, play ball and I will help you. Some of them actually do play ball. Others that actually have any sort of like ideological opposition, because there's no real investment in like covering things truthfully, but there are I guess like different interests that some billionaires might have over others. And the ones that actually do cover things that make Trump look bad, for example, Donald Trump will go and sue in the court system. He's been doing it nonstop. And guess what? Lo and behold, there are a fuck ton of law firms that actually offered pro bono legal counsel, free of charge legal counsel to this administration early on. And then beyond that, there's mainstream or non-mainstream resources of information like independent media. Independent media is obviously a little bit trickier to deal with, but you can have a lot of these also incredibly powerful, wealthy billionaires basically tweak the algorithm to the best of their ability to create an unlimited flow of right-wing reactionary propaganda, as you've seen. And here we are. This is it. This is where we're at. We're getting value-tained.
Some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad is, we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think the people in this room, if you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. That way you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. It's getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse. And we had a recent indication. There was a story about a man who was just left. He quit because he was asked to do phony numbers on crime. And we're going to look into that. I think Pam is going to be looking into that. But he was asked by the city, I guess, that we don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. And under Biden, it was a disaster. And nobody did anything about it. We're going to do things about it like you wouldn't believe. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to just take years, because a lot of people die in years. And we've got incredible people in this country, except we have to allow them to do their job. And that we will deliver like nobody's ever delivered before. I actually think it's easy. You know, if you're competent, it's easy. If you're incompetent, it's impossible. But I'm very competent. Last week, my administration surged 500 federal agents into the district, including from the FBI, ATF, DEA, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. They made dozens of arrests, and that's what starts to happen. Again, cashless bail. Watch what we do with that. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful Capitol was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, Capitol in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get...
This is a great question. After he got elected the second time, it's actually hard for me to listen to him talk. All the confidence and charisma is gone. How are still people falling for this? It's because of what he's saying. So you don't really need a lot of charisma when there is already, centuries of delicately crafted propaganda, anti-brown person, like these guys are different than us, type of propaganda that he can just like rely on. All he's basically doing is relitigating that same exact fear that many Americans have, and that's all they need to hear. They see it as him truth telling. Do you understand? And it's also like a bunch of other boomer problems as well. I mean, if you notice, he's like talking about the beautification of the city by like tackling graffiti. No one under the age of 35 is going to look at that and be like, wow, I'm glad that they're tackling graffiti. Like, that's not a significant problem facing any American. Not even 35, under the age of 45. Who gives a fuck if there's graffiti everywhere? Are you kidding me? Make affordable housing happen, okay? People can't live in homes, and you're talking about like people vandalizing the beautiful city with graffiti. No one cares. I don't care. Graffiti is so not an issue that I would say that like in the millennial generation and onward, people literally commission graffiti artists to do like murals and shit. The reason why he's doing that is because he's an old dipshit, and he is commanding the attention of other old dipshits who do care about that sort of thing and think like, oh my God, it's riddled with crime. Yeah, the pull up your pants caucus celebrating is right. That's exactly what's happening here.
Mugged? Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road because they cut everything. Because some designers said, well, we need a quarter of an inch more turn. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry. If you're not, I'm going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person.
Bro, why can't he do something about a real issue instead of making everything worse? What do you mean? That's the whole principle behind reactionary politics, and it's looking at the reasons as to why crime persists, and instead of actually tackling the material inequities at the heart of why crime happens, okay, instead of tackling the root of why these crimes happen, which is of course woke, gay, and socialist, the solution to these issues. So you can't do that. You have to continue. You have to continue with more and more violent and apprehensive law enforcement policies. It's just law and order. That's what you got to do. More law and order. More law and order. Which of course exacerbates the inequalities anyway. It doesn't actually solve the problem at all. It maybe like sweeps it away from the public eye for a little bit.
And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department, okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke.
People in there because of woke. Incredible, man. Incredible. You got people in there because of woke that shouldn't be in there. I mean, what do you say to that? What do you say to that? That's the president, man. Is it blue and on to think this is another Epstein distraction? No, I think this isn't an Epstein distraction necessarily. I think this is just like another part of the broader plan. I don't think it's even blue and on to suggest that this is like the ultimate goal, which is to violently take over any sort of crime enforcement and give it directly to the hands of a much more servile federal law enforcement that is beholden to Donald Trump first and foremost. It's just like they don't want any sort of localized control. They don't want any sort of like blue cities making decisions that would protect their own citizens, protect their own local constituents. They want basically all control to be in the hands of the administrative state, and they want to engage in a fascist takeover of cities. I think that's what it is. Like, they see the kind of language coming from Zoran Mamdani, for example. And it's like, oh, you do this to DC first, and you have a successful strategy that you've implemented in terms of like a brown shirt fascist takeover over the Capitol. Then you can do it in New York City too. It's I mean, it started not with DC, but it started with like Los Angeles. Los Angeles was the blueprint. Act as though crime is completely out of control and forcibly federalize the National Guard against the demands or the interests of the state governance itself, and use that as a threatening military presence to violently stop any sort of pushback from the local citizens. Portland is another example as well. Portland and Trump 1 was a perfect example of this. And I think like it's DC, LA, it will be New York tomorrow, I think. That's what I think is going on. And if there's no pushback whatsoever, if there's no mobilization against this sort of thing, and if there's no like institutional setbacks presented by the party that is supposed to be at odds with this sort of thing, then we'll just have a complete fascist takeover with very little hurdles implemented in the direction of making sure that America remains a democracy.